There was out of this cast, there were 40 bottles of 12 of them.
Yes.
12 of them were selected for this labeling.
Wow, £1,000,000. And the Chinese guy.
Right.
No, real Chinese.
Yeah, how do you know it's not fake?
Not fake.
The guy on whiskey. Check the guy on whiskey.
A real guy. He's got
All the elite, the whole everything, all that.
Okay, got a lot to do.
He's one of the few.
We're up to Daf Tzaddik Gimel Amud Aleph, halfway down. The next sugya, all the way to the Mishnah, discusses one point. One Amud discuss one point, and that is like this: that the Torah tells us, which is quite unique for Kol Pesach, is they get a second chance. Yeah, Torah Rabban halfway down, which is the only Kol mitzvah like that. There's no other mitzvah you get a second chance on. And the question is, how does one define the second chance? Not always easy to define it. We're going to have three opinions how to define the second chance. We'll see inside, and then we'll discuss. Rabbi says one is chayav koros for the first Kol Pesach and chayav koros for the second one if one does not bring them. The Mnosnim chayav koros alavishan upota l'sheni, you don't get koros for the second. One is only chayav koros for the first if he didn't do the second. Let's go through slowly what these three opinions hold. That means, according to Rabbi, one is chayav koros for the first and the second. Rashi points out that koros being a death penalty is impossible to be carried out twice. So even if somebody doesn't bring Pesach Rishon and he doesn't bring Pesach Sheni, we can't technically give him double koros. It's not possible. Furthermore, says Rashi, normally if a person's over on koros by mistake, what is his punishment? Does anybody know? No, that's on purpose. By mistake, he brings a chatos. So we had many times in Shabbos how many krisos are there. The nafkamina would be for how many chatos there would be. But here we cannot say that. Here we can't say nafkamina is for how many chatos. Anybody know why? No, because that's what we should do. No, so there's a principle in krisos that we only bring a chatos for a lois asay sheish b'koros, not an asay sheish b'koros. How many asay sheish b'koros are there? How many asay sheish b'koros are there, Yisroel? How many asay sheish b'koros are there? There are only two. Kol Pesach and Mira. Kol Pesach and Mira. So those two, one does not bring a chatos. For all the others, there's 39 of the others. Then one is chayav chatos. Like, for example, by mistake, a person is mechal Shabbos, a person by mistake eats in Yom Kippur. For those, you bring a chatos. But for Pesach and Mira, one doesn't. Why? Oh, it's koros. The answer is because that's seish because not seish. So let's go back to Rabbi again. Rabbi says one is chayav koros for the first Pesach and for the second Pesach. It doesn't make any sense. How can it be chayav koros twice? Answers Rashi, and as the Gemara elaborate, that all Rabbi means is as follows: that you are chayav koros for either one. So let's say, for argument's sake, you were negligent in the first one, and the second one, you just didn't have any choice. One is chayav koros for the first. Let's say the first time you were literally an oinus, and the second time you were amazed that you didn't bring it. One is chayav koros for the second. That means one is chayav koros for either one. It means if either one of them you did it, you didn't bring the Kol Pesach out of sheer negligence or laziness, one is chayav koros. That is Shittas Rabbi. The Rabbi Noson's Shitta is like this: that for the first one is chayav koros, second one is not. Meaning like this: if a person was negligent on the first one, it's chayav koros, like Rabbi. But let's say the first one he just simply couldn't get around to it. Just didn't get around to it. It was an oinus. He lived far away. And by the second one, he was negligent. What's the shit according to Abnoson?
Just on the second.
No. According to Rabbi, he'll get just for the second. According to Abnoson, he gets nothing for the second.
Oh, because the first one was Kaveh.
The first one's Kaveh. Again, we have to see the differences, spot the differences. Again, according to Rabbi, one is chayav koros for either one of them which you did incorrectly. That means if you didn't bring the first one, you chayav koros, bring the second one, you chayav koros. According to Abnoson, one is not chayav koros unless one is negligent on the first one. If one is negligent on the second one, one is not chayav koros. So let's say you are oinus for the first and negligent on the second. What is one chayav koros? What would you answer? You'd Rabbi and Abnoson. According to Rabbi, one is chayav koros. According to Abnoson, not. Chananya's got a third shitta, slightly different. He says like this: that you're only chayav koros for the first if you didn't do the second. If you did the second, one is not chayav koros for the first. I think more to elaborate exactly how is that different from the second shitta. Right. Okay, let's see. Let's walk through it. It says, well, as the Tamai, the Gemara says that the girl comes to the shitta, the Tanya. This guy, a person becomes a gay ben shnei Pesachim between the two common Pesachs. V'chein katan sheikt ben shnei Pesachim chayv v'aseh Pesach Sheni zev Rabbi. Rabbi says when it's chayv to bring Pesach Sheni, even if one was not able to bring Pesach Rishon.
The wasn't a yid, he hadn't a chayv before.
Oh, or a child wasn't yet bar mitzvah. After became Rabbi says Yechayev. What's the svar of Rabbi? Because he looks at each one as a separate entity. So therefore,
you only posh from the second one if you've not had the first one.
That's more than that. Even if you couldn't do anything about the first one, the second one stands on its own, and therefore, even if a person becomes a gay between the two, then he has to be in Korban Pesach. Somebody who's obligated to the first and could have bought the first has been the second. Somebody covering the first has not been the second. But my be flicky. And now the Gemara explains even deeper. The second Pesach is a complete independent Yom Tov. It is a tashlumin, meaning that it is a replacement, a payment for the first, but it can't fix up the first one. And therefore, if you didn't do the first one and you didn't do the second bonus, you still would be chayav kos because it doesn't fix. It fixes the first one. So according to Rabbi, let's track it. We'll try and we'll explain more later, but let's get a bit clearer idea here. We've got three opinions regarding how to view Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni. Three separate opinions. And each time we're going to ask a shayla, the answer is always going to be machrikas. The question is machrikas between who and who. A person who did not bring Pesach Rishon because of an oinus, literally, it wasn't his fault. Couldn't have bought Pesach Rishon. And Pesach Sheni he could have bought, but he chose not to. Is he chayav kos? Rabbi says yes. Lo says no. Let's say he could have bought Pesach Rishon. And what happened was he didn't bother. He never bothered. And he did bring Pesach Sheni. Is he chayav kos? Very good. According to Chadanya, no. And also according to Rabbi Nosson, yes. That's what you would say. Again. According to, again, let's go through very slowly. According to Rabbi, each Yom Tov is a separate entity. And therefore, if you don't bring one or the second out of laziness and negligence, one is chayav kos. According to Chananya, the second one fixes the first. I'm going to jump into the third shitta. So if you didn't bring the first, but you did bring the second, so you're not chayav kos. If you didn't bring the second, so then according to Rabbi, one is chayav kos. According to Nosson and according to Chananya, you're not chayav kos. Right? Again, that's a person who was honest by the first, and by the second he was lazy. So according to Nosson and Chananya in Akavia, he's part up. Because they see the second one as just being a payment to the first. According to everyone is chayav. Okay. Says the Gemara like this. They all darshan one pasuk. So let's make sure that you've got the pasuk very, very clear. Have you got the pasuk in front of you? A person who is toy, and did not go on a journey. Let's read the pasuk. Have anybody got the pasuk? Have you got the ask? Could actually bring the pasuk on the advantage. Have you got the pasuk? You should get it for a chumash because there's another pasuk which is also useful to see. So, this one about it. Good day to see the pasuk inside because it helps a very, very lot to understand what's going on. Okay. Right. Here. It's like this. Pasuk says, the pasuk is describing somebody who's lazy and not being Pesach Rishon. And his story, so he could have walked on Pesach, is his story. Was not on a journey. I'm reading the rest of the pasuk, what doesn't bring it. And he did not become on Pesach. The person gets caught. So where do we see from this pasuk? What do you see from this pasuk so far? Everybody agrees on that. Is what? Very good. You don't bring common Pesach Rishon when it's chayav kos. Right. The pasuk now, what we argue about is the last half of the pasuk, and there's three ways to read the pasuk. The pasuk says ki. The word ki, if you know, there are four translations to the word ki. You know, there's four translations. Because, if, but, and perhaps. Rashi says it in a few places. So Rashi over here, the pasuk pshat is, let's say the pasuk. Okay, let's go inside. This is the pasuk. The pasuk says like this: a person who doesn't bring Pesach Rishon gets kos. Ki kol Hashem lo yehiv ikrid. And the pasuk finishes off. Cheto yisod. More explains. Vebi sova. That tells us what? That he didn't become Pesach B'Rishon. And therefore, if he didn't come Pesach Rishon, he gets kos. And now, ki means if. Where do we see? Let's say, ki kore kan sipur lefonecho. By Shiruach HaKan. Ki kore kan sipur lefonecho. If a nest should appear in front of you, then you have to send away the mother before you take the eggs. Ki yikore, what does that pasuk mean? If. So he reads the second half of the pasuk. Ki, if Korban Hashem lo yekriv, if you do not bring the Korban Hashem, which Korban are we talking about? Can we talk about Pesach Rishon? No. How do I not talk about Pesach Rishon? Because the pasuk already spoke about it. Very good. So what's the pasuk speaking about? Only Pesach Sheni. And the pasuk says Cheto Yisro, which we're going to dash in a minute, means kos. So the pasuk tells us kos for Pesach Rishon, kos for Pesach Sheni. It's mamish geschmack if you say it inside. It's a shame not to. Again, if he doesn't bring the Korban Hashem, then Cheto Yisro. Inami, the more explains, Inami meaning the key means if. How do you know Cheto Yisro means kos? And this is a big discussion we're going to have. How do you know the word Cheto Yisro means kos? Kasaba. We have go up to Tzadik Gimel with Beis top line. Here the Gemara only mentions half the sugya, so that's why it's a little bit outside. The Torah says like this. More quotes this. So it's good to note. There was once a terrible person that what happened was he was mekrishish eitzim, and the Torah tells us different things about him. And the pasuk there, that end of Hashbus Shalach says, "Va'nefesh asher taseh biyod v'omam nezach v'nagev es Hashem hu megadif." Does anybody know how to translate the words as Hashem hu megadif? What does that mean? Somebody who curses, or nowadays the Gemara uses the euphemism, he blesses Hashem, so he gets the pasuk finishes off for nichlas nefesh he gets kos. So that's one translation. Another translation is Ke Hashem u'megadef means somebody who praises avodah zarah. That's what it means. So Hashem u'megadef is machlokes how to understand the pasuk, and it's teaching us that somebody who serves avodah zarah gets kos. Rabbi understands, Kasava Megadef Hadibavorach Hashem. He understands that pasuk is like you explained it, is referring to somebody who blesses euphemistically Hashem. Uksiv, there's another pasuk regarding somebody who curses Hashem, Mevorach Hashem, V'nosa Chetoi. Now, what is the punishment of somebody who curses Hashem? The answer is, since the Torah says by Megadef, which according to Rabbi, the word Megadef means curses Hashem, it says kos. And in another pasuk regarding somebody who curses Hashem, it says v'nosa chetoi. So therefore, we know that the word nosa chetoi means kos. Again, the pasuk says the first doesn't become Pesach Rishon v'nichruso. Ki kol Hashem lo yehikriv. We translate the word ki as what? What translate the word ki as? If. The Cheto Yisro. What's Cheto Yisro mean? Kos. How do I know it means kos? Because regarding curses Hashem, it says kos. It says Cheto Yisro. And then in another place, one place says curses Hashem, Gadif gets kos. And another place, something curses Hashem, it says Cheto Yisro. Cheto Yisro we know must mean kos, because by the Gadif it says kos. So we know the word Cheto Yisro means kos. So when the pasuk says Kikon Hashem lo yehikriv, it's referring to kos of somebody who curses Hashem. And therefore we know Cheto Yisro, somebody does with Pesach Sheni gets kos. From Nosan Sola. Nosan, how does he translate the pasuk? He agrees with the beginning half of the pasuk. Somebody does bring Pesach Rishon gets kos. The high key loshin dahahu is because v'hachi kama rachmono. Do kol Hashem lo yikriv v'ma'adu b'rishon, because he didn't bring the first. The pasuk is repeating. They're explaining why he gets kos. Meaning like this: somebody who doesn't bring Pesach Rishon gets kos. Why? Because he didn't bring Pesach Rishon. Key, because Korban Hashem lo yikriv. He didn't bring the Korban Pesach, meaning he didn't bring the first Korban Pesach, meaning that what? That the only time one gets cause is for not being a Pesach Rishon. Before Pesach Sheni, there's no thing cause. According to that, what's the difficulty with the pasuk? Is what's the word Chet Yisra comes to tell you. According to Rabbi, Chet Yisra is telling you cause for the second book of Pesach. According to Rabbi Nosson that says that Ki Kon Hashem Le'ikriv is referred to Pesach Rishon, why did Chet Yisra? So the Gemara answers, Hi Chet Yisra by Yovdei, Kesova Megadef Lavani Mevochs Hashem. He holds that Megadef is not subdue Kis Hashem, rather it's somebody who what? Who praises Avodah Zarah. So therefore, how do I even know that subdue Kis Hashem gets cause? Answer. He does it the other way around. Since the pasuk over here tells us that one gets cause for not being Pesach Rishon, so I know that whenever the Torah uses the phrase Cheta Yisor, it means cause. So when the Torah says by somebody who blesses Hashem euphemistically, it says Cheta Yisor, I know that he gets cause. Why does he not learn this from Megadif, that you get cause from somebody who blesses Hashem? Because he translates the word Megadif as referring to somebody who praises Avodah Zarah. Says if he agrees with Rabbi that the word ki means if, but not if and there's another story, but if as a continuation, that he gets cause for the first Korban Pesach if he doesn't bring the second Pesach. Want to tell us that somebody who curses Hashem gets cause. There are three ways to read the pasuk. Let's read the pasuk very carefully. I'm going to read the pasuk 3 times, each time according to a different opinion. According to Rabbi, very briefly. Somebody who could be the Korban Pesach. He's not far away, and he doesn't bring a Korban Pesach, gets cause. And if he doesn't bring Pesach Sheni, Cheta Yisra gets cause for Pesach Sheni. That's Rabbi. Shita Sabdosan is. And he doesn't bring Korban Pesach, V'nichasa gets cause. Why? Because he didn't bring Korban Hashem lo Yikriv, he didn't bring Pesach Rishon. Because for Pesach Sheni there is no cause. Cheta Yisra is the teacher that somebody who blesses Hashem gets cause. Finally, this is Hananiah. Gets cause for Pesach Rishon. If he does not bring Korban Hashem, meaning Pesach Sheni. So if you don't bring Pesach Sheni, then you get cause for Pesach Rishon. Another more summarizes this whole sugya. Hilkoch, therefore. Is it bazel? If a person was mazed by both Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni, divakul chayav, everybody agrees is chayav cause. Shogak bazel. Let's say he by mistake didn't do either divakul potter. Is it Bevis? If it was amazing Bevis in the Shogak B'Sheni, but it was only a mistake for the second one. According to Rabbi Noson is chayav. Why is he chayav? Because they say a chayav cause for the first one. But Rabbi Chanan ben Akavya potter. He's potter. Why? Because he says that the second one was a replacement for the second one. And at the end of the day, the end of the day, he didn't do anything wrong with the second one, because when he came to the second one, he was a shogeg. But shogeg bevishon hezit b'sheni leRebbi chayav. According to Rebbe, is chayav because he got mixed up. He didn't do the second. He didn't do the second one. And also Chanan ben Akavya potter. According to Chanan ben Akavya, is potter. Why? Because he says the second one's a replacement for the first one, and the first one you were shogeg. So let's get it clear again. If you're mazed by both, you have cause. Shogeg by both, apart from cause. If you're mazed by the first and shogeg by the second, according to Rabbi, you have cause because of the second. Because of the first. And the Noson also you have cause for the first. Because the Noson only says you not have cause for the second, but he agrees that for the first you all have cause. If you are mazed for the if you're shogeg for the first, amazed for the second, only according to Rabbi you have cause. Why? Because according to Rabbi you have cause for the second. According to Akabia, they say no, there's no such thing as ever being have cause for the second, because the second one's only a replacement for the first. We're finished with that sugya. It's a new sugya, a new mission. And we're going to learn very interesting things. It's good to get into it. What is considered to be far away? Says the Mishnah in the Moedin Velachutz from the town called Moedin and outwards. So, if you were to know the distance from Yerushalayim to Moedin, right? Let's say it's 10 miles for argument's sake. So then it's one direction. So in any direction, if you go 10 miles, that's considered far away. What?
In regard to what?
That you're not chayav kos for not being Pesach Rishon. So if a person's further on Erev Pesach than that town in any direction, he is not chayav kos for not bringing Pesach
What
Rishon.
happens if you live in Haifa?
So you don't have to bring Pesach Rishon
Ever.
ever.
But you would always have to do a legal.
Oh, we'll discuss that. This is a concept. We'll come to it. Rabbi Lezer omer maskipos azor v'lachutz. If you're standing outside the step of the azor, you're a meter away from the azor, you're called far away, and you're not chayav kos for not being Kom Pesach.
No one will ever.
No, not chayav kos, but of course you've got first called Pesach Shady that you have to, and of course you're allowed to bring. We're saying, what does it mean? You're potter. What's been to? I know it's the first time you hear it. It's very, very strange. But actually, just say it. Even one step out of the azor. There's a little dot on the word hey on the pasuk derech l'choika. Whenever we have a dot in the Torah, it's as if is the letter or the word has been deleted or limited. So therefore, the dot of the word derech l'choika tells us that the journey doesn't need to be a real long journey. Even one step is considered far enough. So therefore, if you're one step out of the azor, you're far away. I saw that the Kurdu Shami say as follows, that V'choika is Lashon Nekeva. V'choika is referring to the journey. Derech V'choika. Derech V'choika means a long journey. A long journey is a long way. But because we put a dot over the hay, so what happens is, what you do is, it's as if the hay is deleted. So V'choika is referring to the person. The person, if he's away, that's enough. So even if it's not a long journey, so from there we see that if a person's away, he is potter from Koros for not being Pesach Rishon. So we've got to be two opinions. What's considered far away? Now, the Gemara is going to go into a lot of geography, astrology. It's very, very interesting Gemara. We need to be able to concentrate like this. What time is the earliest that you could bring the Korban Pesach? Anybody know? What's the Chatzos? Well, very good. Now that is what the Gemara says. Does anybody have any reason to object to what Ben's saying? Chatzos is the earliest time.
You'll be burned by the time you complete it.
Why? No, not necessarily. Shechted by Chatzos. No, that's not. No.
You don't have to.
No, you can roast it that night. No, okay, we had it in Tom and Nishchat, very, very briefly. Say like this. We'll always be the common Tom at first. The Torah says Bein al-Arbaim. Bein al-Arbaim means between the two darknesses, the darkness of the day when the sun sets a tiny bit in the day, and the darkness of the night when it gets completely dark. The Gemara there actually says that Bein al-Arbaim starts half an hour after Chatzos. We discussed then why only half an hour after Chatzos, not why by Chatzos. Rashi says because the sun, a minute after Chatzos, is not really dark. So according to that, Ben should have answered half an hour after Chatzos. Instead, he said Chatzos. Now the problem is that Rashi in this whole sugya ignores that sugya and says indeed Chatzos, which is a problem. So the many answers, either this Gemara is to Beis, this is a Bono. We're going to stick to our sugya. That the earliest time you can bring the Korban Pesach is Chatzos. A normal day, you must remember Pesach is at the time when the sun, day and night is about the same amount of time. How many hours is the day? 12. What time is the latest you can Korban Pesach? Shkia, which means you've got 6 hours. 6 hours. Now, this is a very, very interesting discussion. I'm not going to talk about it now, just re-point it out. From this Gemara, it comes out, you're not mechuyev to start thinking about Korban Pesach till Chatzos, because before then you can say, I wasn't thinking about it, I'm not yet mechuyev in the mitzvah. So the earliest time you're supposed to be thinking about it is when? It's Chatzos. The Chesed asks a question, if you come with that logic, a person will say, the earliest time I have to think about a sukkah is the night after I come in from Yom Tov, as far as night of Sukkahs. And then I'm not allowed to build because it's Yom Tov, so I should be part from Sukkah. So he says, maybe you would be, but then you'd have to move into other people's Sukkahs. And you'd be expected to. Why? It's a big problem, this. This is a big question, we'll discuss it. Main point, because I want to get into the nitty-gritty of the Gemara. The earliest you have to consider it is when? Chatzos. How many hours have you got to walk to Yerushalayim? 6 hours. So the really derech ha'choika should be how much? 6 hours walking. Oh, this is a good one. So now, how fast can you walk in 6 hours? How far can you walk?
Depends really or not. It depends how flat or hilly it is.
15 minutes an hour.
No. Oh, this is the whole discussion, and this one goes deep into this.
Quite hilly. The surrounding areas.
You're fit.
You're
Yeah,
not
I'm sure you can do it. He did it yesterday. I don't know how she did. Ola. It's 15 mil. How much could the person walk in a day? 10 pasos. 10 pasos. Malus hashachar v'adanetz hachama from malus nets. So, 10 pasos. A person walks 10 pasos. How many mil in a paso? How many mil in a paso? 4. Very good. How big is a mil? 2,000 amas, which is approximately how much? Either 1.2 kilometers or about 0.8 kilometers. So we'll say 1 kilometer to go halfway between the Chazon Ish and Chaim Not. So about a kilometer. So we say 4 mil to a parsa, 4 kilometers. I want to give you a chart, so you should all know it off by heart, I'm sure. No. 40 kilometers you can walk in a day. You can walk in a day 40 kilometers. That sits with you well. Yes, 40 kilometers in a day, 12-hour day. That's an average of just over 3 kilometers an hour, which is a normal good pace for walking. Okay. So now, the point is like this, that the Gemara discusses, this is very to get into it like this. We know, we believe that the sun goes around the earth, right? The Gemara's picture is not like that. The Gemara's picture is that the sun rises in the east, goes all the way to the west, and then imagine we'd have a light in this room. Right? Imagine light would go in this room, and then the light goes out of the wall and goes over the ceiling and comes back there. So then what happens is, at night, you can't see the sun. Why can't you see the sun? Because it's above what's called the dome of the heavens. So it's gone out of the heavens, gone above the heavens, and comes back in. What? Out of the atmosphere. Above the atmosphere, therefore you can't see it. Alois, and basically, what's Alois HaShachat and Netz? Very quickly, it's important to get this clear. Alois is when there's a bit of light in the sky. Netz is when we see the sun. Shkia is when the sun sets. Tzeisakrichovim is when it's dark. How much time distance is there between Alois and Netz and between Shkia and Tzeisakrichovim? The Gemara says the distance of walking 5 mil, which you will see, 90 minutes. Why is it such that amount of time? Because that is the thickness of the atmosphere that it has to then pass to be revealed and then to bring light again. Okay, the Gemara says like this. Let's start again. Can walk 10 parsa, 40 minutes. From Alois till Netz, 5 minutes. You can walk 5. From Shkia till Tzeis, 5 minutes is another 5. So you can do 30 in a day from Netz till Shkia. How much can you do 30? 5 from Alois till Netz, 30 from Netz till Shkia, and another 5 from Shkia to Tzeis HaKechavim. So therefore, so you can do 15 from one half of the day. If you can't get in by the time of Shechita, so you're out of town. So again, you can do 40 mil in a day. 5 from Alois till Netz, 5 from Shkia to 6, 30 in the rest of the day. So in a 12-hour day, you could do 30. So half the day, you could do 15. So therefore, you start walking by midday. You have to get there before Shkia, otherwise it'll be possible. So that's why if you're 15 mil out of your Shabbat, it's such geschmackig Gemara is this. Okay, you're good mathematicians, right? So there are 12 hours in a day, we just said. How many mil can you walk in a day in the 12 hours? How many can you walk? Oh, I was hoping you say 30. 5 before, 5 after, 30 left. How many minutes if you've got 12 hours? How many minutes are that? 720. Brilliant. You can walk 30 mil. In 720 minutes. How long does it take to walk a mil? Come on. Very good. 24 minutes to walk a mil. You look at the Mishnah, we'll open it up, and he'll say to you, there are 3 shittas how much a mil is. 24 minutes, 22 and a half minutes, and 18 minutes. You've just established where the Mishnah got his 24 minutes from this Gemara. Because 30 mil in a 12-hour day, 720 minutes, 30 mil divided, and it makes huge nafkaminas. For example, how far you have to walk to Shiur, how much you have to wait to get water for Negavat, all these kinds of things. But this is one place. Okay. But the Ikeda Kuda, the Gemara is going to go into this. It's going to go into tremendous astrology. By the time you finish, you're going to go outside and tell me where the stars are. And how big they are, things like that. Unfortunately, it doesn't fit in with today's science. That's not going to disturb us at all. We don't care so much about. What did you say? I didn't what you said.
Rabbi Stanton,
No, it's perfectly simple mathematics. Take out your phone. 720 divided by 30 is not so hard to work out.
But I'm not. Son?
Okay, wait a second. Let's get to the other. So it takes again in a daytime. How many mil can you walk in the daytime? Very good. So therefore, you have to start walking by midday. You have to get there by Shiur. So how close do you have to be to Yerushalayim? 50. Oh. Says the Gemara. Oh mama, million. You can walk 5 mil from Malois till late. How do you know that? The shacha ola means the morning. There's a bit of light. But you eat some malachim rushed. Who did they rush? Loit to get out of storm. The sun came out. From the time shacha ola, from the time the morning started rising, till the sun came out. That means from light till night, you can walk 5 mil. So if you ever go on holiday and you've got time, you should do this. I've actually done it once or twice. What you do is get up early or go to bed later, which makes a difference. So what you do is you just look at when is there a tiny bit of light above the horizon, and then when do you see the sun? And you should count it. And if it's 5 times 24, 120 minutes, we've got like the shit on the shore says 24. If it's 90 minutes, we've got a shit of 18. If you go, I mean, this is what the Gemara is saying. From the time of Alois HaShacha till Netz is how long? 5 mil. So if you look at the Mesh calendar, you should hopefully find it. You won't find it because there's many different shit. Go for it. What's a long journey? If you can't get in a Shechita. That means if I start walking by Chatzos and I'm not going to get there by Shechita, what's the din? I'm going to start walking. What? What did you say? A potter. Very good. I'm potter. But so I don't even have to start walking because at the end of the day, I'm potter. Rabbi Yehuda Omar. What? We will discuss that also later. No, okay. Okay, but here we're talking about 3.5 kilometers an hour. It's not such a fast speed. Okay. He has to get in for the eating. Why does he have to get in for the eating? Because he can send a messenger ahead. How long? So what? According to Rabbi Yehuda, you start walking by Chatzos, and you have to get in b'shas eating. How many hours do you have? Who wants to say a guess?
Midnight. You get an extra 5 mil.
Midnight. Why 5 mil?
Up to midnight.
Oh, from Shiur till now to midnight.
So you got another 6 hours. Very good.
And you've got 6 hours to get there.
So you got 12 hours. 12 hours. Or you said that's Velos Azar says midnight. Chachamim say till when can you eat it? Till the morning. It's good to the Chachamim. You got 18 hours. So again, Rabbi Yehuda says until the time of eating. So you set up by Chatzos. You've got either 12 hours according to Velos Azar, 18 hours. Teresa says I can't understand this Gemara. I just don't understand this Gemara because it comes out that if you got 12 or 18 hours, that's a very, very long way. You can walk up very far. And our Mishnah says Modi'in. So he says, Yehuda obviously must hold that Modi'in is very, very, very far from Yerushalayim because he gives you 12 or 18 hours to walk. Why doesn't he go and look out where Modi'in is? Let's just see the thesis inside. It's the second thesis. Let's go and look. So he says that nowadays Eretz Yisrael shriveled up when the Churban happened. And what happened was more. It's a medrash. So that, no, it was much bigger. So therefore, we can't really measure these things anymore. And also, he says maybe Yehuda means a different thing. But it's a very interesting question. So again, according to Ula, you have to get there before Shechita, before Shkia. According to Yehuda, that's according to Ula. According to Yehuda, by Chatzos or. That's a good question. Yeah, but the point is, how do you work out the point of Chiyuv? By working out how far you can walk. So according to Ula, once you know that you're further than 15 mil, you know that if you get to start walking, you won't get there. You don't have to start walking. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that you've got 12 or 18 hours to walk, so then the point of Chiyuv is much, 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 much further because you can know that you can walk much more. Rabbi asks Ula the following question, and he asks it. I'm going to all outside and we'll do it inside quickly. Like this. Basically, according to Ula, you have to be there b'shas what? Shechita. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you have to be there right b'shas achira. We have a machloikus regarding a Tomei person. Somebody who's Tomei on their Pesach, that by the night of Pesach, he will be Tomei. Can one shecht come on Pesach for him or not? And we have machloikus Ula and Rabbi Yehuda, and they hold the exact opposite of what they hold over here. And Rabbi says, I don't understand, it's making any sense. You're both contradicting yourself. According to you, Ula, you said over here you have to ride b'shas shchita, but by Tumah you say it's good enough if you'll be Torah at night. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, it says you have to arrive at B'shas Achila, but regarding Shechita, it says you have to be Torah B'shas Shechita. So how does that work? Do you need to be available B'shas Shechita, and therefore for Derech L'Choika or Tommy? Or do you have to be available B'shas Achila, which gives you much more time for Shechita and Tumah? You both contradict yourself from Shechita to Achila. And the answer of the Gemara is very straightforward.
It's not contradiction.
Why is it not contradiction?
Because Shechita needs you to be not available, not there, but
Right.
just that you will be able to meet it later on.
But so if you got the same question about
So-
both, I thought, well, it doesn't work so easy. Rashi says, because again, the question is like this: you could ask somebody else to shecht on your behalf if you're Tom, but you could ask somebody to shecht on your behalf if you're far away. So therefore, either way, if you hold that you have to be available with Shah Shechita, so that the Tommy person will be no good, he's not available. If it doesn't matter, so this is the Gemara, this is Rabbi's question, and the Gemara's answer basically is like this: that the Torah made two dispensations. One, somebody who's Tommy, another, somebody who's far away. And each one has its parameters. And the Torah never said that they both have to be the same. And it could be that the one who's far away, it's to do with when will he arrive. Somebody who's Tomei, it's exerts HaKosov that even though somebody else can shecht for him, nevertheless the Torah gave him as a dispensation. So therefore the fact that the Torah gave two different dispensations and each one has got its own rules, you can't contradict one from the other. Because each, it's a bit like you were trying to say, Rashi says that the Torah made the rules of what it is. And therefore, this time the Torah said is B'shas Shechita, and this one Torah said B'shas Achila. Let's look more inside. Omalei, we're up to 6 lines from the bottom, or 7 lines from the bottom, beginning of the line. Omalei Rabbi Ledidoch kasha, you it's difficult to have Yehuda kasha. Ledidoch kasha, Thomas kasha, B'shas Shechita. You have to arrive at the time of Shechita. But to make sheret, somebody who's told me that B'shas Shechita is not going to be Torah till that night. The comment said you hold Shechita v'zukah, that's made sheret. You hold you can't shech to somebody who's told me, even though it's not going to be available till night. Ulav Yehuda kasha, could have it's also difficult. As long as you get in time for eating. But to make sure, you can get in the time of eating because you'll be tired by the time it comes to nightfall. You're not allowed to shecht but it's not shver according to either. It's not difficult. The Torah made a special rule for toy, but not for Tommy, meaning that by Tommy, the halacha is that the Torah never said that if you're derech chayka, you've got to p'tur. And the Torah said the rule of derech chayka, if you can't get there within the time, and therefore since a person is far away, he's potter. Top of the Torah says that even the Tzvei Sheret doesn't need to be a common dichsev. Ish ki etom lenefesh. Mi lo yaskinon shechol shvil sheloi liyos be'eva Pesach. Are we not talking about for the 7th day is Erev Pesach? He dashes the pasuk that we talk about somebody who's Tomei and is about to become Torah. And nevertheless, the Torah says, don't become on Pesach. So he holds that by Tumah, the Torah limits it, that even if you're going to be Torah that night, we don't care, you're Potter. So that's, you can't compare the two stories together. Now the Gemara discusses a little bit, which we discussed before, is what happens if a person's got a quicker way of getting there, or a person's got a slower way of getting there because there's traffic. So the Gemara says, he can race there with horses. He wasn't on the journey, he is on the journey. Since he's got a long journey, the fact that he could get there makes him Potter. So if you're 16 mil away from Yerushalayim, and you can easily get there on a horse, you're Potter. While it's other around, he's less than 15 mil. So there's wagons, there's camels, and they block the journey. So he is chayv kos. Even though he can't get there, he's chayv kos. Why is he chayv kos? Oh, he can't get there. The answer is, it's your job to make sure to plan ahead that when you go to Yerushalayim, that you shouldn't get stuck in traffic. And therefore, if you left and you know there's going to be traffic, so it's all got to do with 15 mil, no more, no less. This next Gemara is a lot of mathematics and a lot of astrology, and doesn't fit into today's science. And it requires, I'm not going to there's no point trying to work out how it works with our today science, but it doesn't matter. Shitta alpha parsa have alma. The world is 6,000 parsa big. So how many mil in a parsa? So there's 4 mil in a parsa. So he's saying there's 24,000 mil. How much is a mil? About a kilometer, 24,000 kilometers, which is interesting. The thickness of the heavens, I told you before, and again, Rashi explains a great length over here. According to Rava, how does the sun become dark at night? It goes back over the same place we went during the day, but it retreats. But when it retreats over a layer, a dome. That dome, he says, is 1,000 parsa thick. It's 1,000 parsa thick. And that's why the skylight doesn't go through it. Choda Gemor, one, he learned from Messias. The Choda Sva, he worked it out himself. How much can a person walk in a day? A person can walk 10 parsos, which is how many mil? 40 mil. There's 5 mil. Let's work it out. You can walk 40 mil. 5 from 5 from Shkia to Tzes Kechavim. The rest of the day, how much can you walk? 30 mil. So when the sun rises to the sun sets, it does the equivalent of what it takes a person to walk 30 mil. But just to go past the covering takes it the amount of time that a person can walk 5 mil. So the amount of time the sun does to go past behind its covering is the amount of time, or on the morning from behind its covering, is the amount of time it takes a person to walk 5 mil. And the distance a person can walk in an entire day is 30 mil, because 5 morning, 5 at night, 30 during the day. So therefore it comes out that it's a sixth of the distance. Now, he knew by Messias, that means he knew from his Rebbes that the world is 6,000 parsa big. So therefore he worked it out himself that if the world is 6,000 parsa big, so it makes sense that the thickness of the sky is 1,000 parsa. Again, let's do it very briefly again. The world, you can walk 40 mil, 5 morning, 5 at night, 5 in the time it takes for the sun to come from behind its border, behind its barrier, and 5 to go behind its barrier. And then it takes 30 mil for the sun to go from one end of the world to the other. And therefore it takes 1/6 of the time to go behind its barrier as it takes to cross the whole world. If we know, I learned, he said from my Rebbe, that the world is 6,000 parsa. So 1/6 of that is 1,000 parsa. So the thickness of the dome is 1,000 parsa. Meisvei says the Gemara, ask the question. The thickness is only 1/10, not 1/6, it's 1/10. How much can a person walk in a day? It's 1/10. It's 1/10 of the day. Tiyuvta, Durova, Tiyuvta. There's a lot of mathematics here. We've got a few minutes. It's like this. The Gemara says that the world is 1/10. The thickness is only 1/10. Why? Because a person can walk 10 parsa. And he can do 4 in the morning, not 5. 4, not 5, like we said before, but 4. The amount of time for the sun to come behind the dome and go behind the dome 4. So therefore, it's 1/10. Oh, problem is it's 32. So how does it come to 1/10? What does it mean 1/10? It's not really 1/10.
4 plus 4 and 32.
Yeah, but then it comes out. Yeah, but it's not, because if you work out the sun from one end to the other, takes 32. And then it takes a 4 to go through. Yeah, so that means the case. But for the sun, from the sunrise to sunset, the sun goes the amount of time that person can walk 32 mil. But then when the sun rises and the sun sets, it takes 4 mil of a person's walking. So the thickness of the dome is 1/8, not 32. So because of that, the Rambam explains that over here what we mean is that he held that a person actually walks 48 during the day. 48 during the day, meaning like this: 4 in the morning, 40 during the day, and another 4 at night. And therefore, a person can walk 40 mil in a 12-hour day. Now, if you remember earlier, we said that there are 720 minutes in a day. Right? According to the Rambam, the person walks 40 during the day, plus another 4 in the morning, 4 at night. So if a person can walk 40 during the day in 720 minutes, how much can he do in a mil, and how long does it take? 720 divided by 40.
18 minutes.
It's 18. That's the shitta. That's where the Rabbi the Mishnah gets 18 minutes, because you can do 40. Rashi, though, says like this. Rashi over here says when we say 1/10, we don't mean literally 1/10. We mean that with it is 1/10. So therefore, really, it's like 1/8. So Rashi says like this: a person can walk 32 mil in a day, 4 in the beginning, 4 at night. Now this you need a calculator for. Is 720 minutes in a day. And according to Rashi, a person can walk 32 mil in a day.
22 and a half.
Yeah, you're guessing it because I said from the Shabbat, you worked it out. Can anybody take out a calculator? Anybody got I've got a calculator, if you don't mind. I'm going to
I assume it's not.
like work it out. I've got a calculator on this thing. 720 divided by 32 equals 22 and a half. So therefore, Rashi's shitta is, you worked it out, you guessed it. You guessed it's very hard to work, so I just tried to, okay. So therefore the Gemara says that you've got a kash on Rava. Rava says the 6. Here we see that the thickness of the dome is only an 8th. Says the Gemara, tiyuvta to Rava tiyuvta. Tiyuvta to Ula tiyuvta. It's a kash on Ula as well. Because if you remember, how much did Ula say you can walk in half a day? How much can Ula say you can walk? 15. From here, the Gemara says you can walk 32 in a whole day. So how much can you walk in half a day? 16. It's a kash on Rabbi Yochanan as well, because Rabbi Yochanan was one who said that, again, what did Rabbi Yochanan say? That a person walks 10 from Alois till Net and only 5 and not 4. So Gemara says, I meant that you can walk 10 throughout the entire day. They included the earlier from the day and later in the day in the equivalents, but I meant 10 within the day without the what is before and what is after. Says more one final question. Chadida told us that Lot walked from Stoim till Tsoya, and Chadida measured the distance. How much distance was it? Did anybody remember I had it before? 5 mil. Now, the Gemara earlier proved that we're talking about from Alois till Netz took him 5 mil. But the Gemara asks a kasha because over here the Gemara said that how much can a person walk? It's only 4. So why did Lot manage 5? And says the Gemara, the fact that they rushed him, so he managed to do 5. Normally he can only do 4, but here he managed to do 5. And since he managed to do 5, so therefore, they said, what's the word for it? They said, and therefore he managed to do 5, but normally it's only 4. Okay, so let's go very, very, very briefly. We have 3 opinions how much a person can walk in a day. That means from Alois, from Netz to Shkia. According to the Rambam, the way he understands it was 40. According to Rashi, it is 32. According to Ula, it is only 30. And that makes an afkimina how long a mir is, and it makes an afkimina to the thickness of the dome. The Gemara tomorrow is going to continue with how to measure the size of this world, and does it fit in with Rava that says that this world is 6,000 pounds. So up to Tosh Shema, 2/3 of the way down. Yeah, it's not so far, no. The dome. Good evening, in. Yeah, it's not so far, especially if you've got